Oh gosh.
How's it going, everybody? I am Luka, not Josh. Josh is out tonight, so I am sitting in the host chair. But with me is our usual third man up, the next man up for Bill's chat with all of our content needs, and that is our good friend Stokes. Stokes, how you doing?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I can hear it's a good time over there in your household. I know you got a couple pups running
Yeah.
around there. So we bear in mind we do apologize for that, but hey, you got to let the dogs do their thing. But today, I mean, look, tonight we have a simple game to talk about. It's one that both teams circle every year when the schedule comes out. When are the Bills playing the Chiefs and when are the Chiefs playing the Bills? It's just that simple. This is always a game of massive magnitude. And tonight, I really want to even roll right into it, even greater than that. This effectively is what feels like a playoff game for not only the Bills, but also the Chiefs, because we're kind of in a rare era with the Chiefs. And I want to bring that up because I was on a show with a Chiefs content creator earlier this week, and you could even get that vibe from them where they understand the severity of this game in their own season, just like the Bills have their own situation. Yes, the Bills are 6-6, of course. Uh, Everything hinges on this when it comes to their playoff contention. But the Chiefs also now are in a surprising situation after a loss in Green Bay, where if they were to lose this game and Denver goes into LA to beat the Chargers, they're only one game ahead in their division in December, where I don't think Mahomes has ever even come close to that part of predicament in his career. And Andy Reid has never felt that way, I don't believe, in Kansas City since he's had Mahomes, obviously, as himself. It's just one of those things where this truly is a playoff game. This is one of those regular season games and a half. And we are lined up for a great one, Stokes. And I'm assuming, just like myself, you are very excited to watch this one come Sunday.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It like this rivalry is a big time rivalry as it is, and like with the stakes as they are, they're about as close as it gets to an actual playoff game. And I couldn't be more excited for the game. I like that the Chiefs' backs are proverbially against the wall. The Bills, of course, are their backs are against the wall, and it is very exciting for this game to have the magnitude and have the stakes that are attached to it. As you mentioned, all everything that is attached to what the Chiefs are trying to do. I think had Denver won last week, it would have been a much different type of situation. But they still don't have a whole lot of a margin for error. And Mahomes hasn't had a playoff game outside of Arrowhead unless it was the Super Bowl. So I think that that's a reality he'll have to deal with this year, and that's cool to think about. But most importantly, most first and foremost, the Bills need this if they want to have any sort of legitimate shot at the playoffs. I mean, they hold pretty much all of it in their control as far as winning games, and this is one of the ones that you need. I mean, you need one of the two, of course, but in my mind, we need this one.
Yeah, we need this one just a little bit more, but the Chiefs are, of course, not going to be overlooking this for any reason whatsoever. You mentioned, of course, that Mahomes and the crazy stat with that, he's never played a road playoff game. We are most likely going to see that this season, and it is exciting. I will say, being on that Chiefs show that I was, they even had this strange intrigue about it themselves. I found that very odd when that topic came up, but regardless, another couple crazy stats about this matchup that make it even more kind of, it raises the bar a little bit. Kansas City in the Mahomes era, off a loss, 16-3. And even for gambling purposes, Mahomes in games where he is a home favorite, or I think it's favored in general, but for the most part, I believe these are normally home. 3 points or less, 15-5 against the spread, just telling you that they normally finish the job.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, the Bills are coming off a bye. In the McDermott era, of course, they have never lost off said bye. They are 6-0 going off of a bye wherever they may be. Last year was a home game against the Packers and so on and so forth. So this really feels like one of those games where you have a lot working in a weird way in the favor of, because backs are against the wall, great in this position, whatever it is, that both teams are going to elevate themselves, and we are in line for a classic. Real quick though, too, I don't want to go too far away from this, Stokes. I did bring up McDermott. There's, of course, the biggest news of the week that it feels like in Bill's world is this McDermott story that came out by Tyler Dunn. Realistically, I'll give you the floor to start a little bit. What are your feelings on that story? What do you think about it when it comes to McDermott, the Bills, kind of just your overall thoughts on, post McDermott story and what is going on when it comes to that?
So it's such a really delicate situation because that whole thing means a lot to a lot of people, and everything that it affected. So, but at the same time, you think of how teams are, and for they feel like it's a gladiator sport. They feel like it's war for them, and when you juxtapose those two, you can rationalize how he got to that. And you don't really want to be in a position where you're like, well, yeah, he was right, or something along those lines. But at the same time, you understand that they are in an us against the world mentality, and that's why these guys, or how these guys are able to get up to do a profession that is more than likely going to take years off their lives. Like, that is the reality of what they're doing. And like, to get to that point, and to be that type of, I mean, for pretty much crazy-ish, like a little tangent of crazy. You had the guys that are leading those guys into those scrums and things like that. They've got that crazy-ish as well.
Yeah, and of course, you're more referring to one segment of that story that
Yeah.
came out naturally. Yeah, it was just one of those things overall, just as a whole story. That, in my opinion, stuff of that nature, and I don't want to dive deep into it. If you want a little bit more in-depth knowledge, I will say, harmless plug here. Our normal host Josh did record himself a video and published it on our own Bills Chat YouTube. Gave a really nice, thorough kind of analysis. He sat down during that god awful Thursday night game that actually turned into not being too bad. But during that game, he read through the entire thing and everything like that. He gives his thoughts and whatnot on what he feels about the story and kind of future outlook from there. Realistically, though, the story to me kind of just raises a little bit of outside question with McDermott, in a sense, where you truly, this image that I think McDermott has methodically built of himself and done so in a very well way, where you find him to be structured, dependable, things of nature that you find in quality leaders. There's a little bit of kind of tarnish on that. There's a little bit of question on just how capable he truly is of being that clean leader of an NFL locker room, whether that's fair or not. Especially the timing of the season is the craziest part to me, to be quite honest. I don't think it's not by design. I'm pretty sure Tyler Dunn released that at this moment in time, fully aware of what was going on, when it is, and so on and so forth. It does raise some questions on, now, is this potentially, and I'm going to leave it here, we're going to move back onto the game, but the last thing I will say is, it, for me at least, it does raise a question where I know owners and NFL owners, and Terry being one of them, very prideful people. When you add this on top of kind of the lackluster year McDermott's having himself, is this the thing or item that he can lean back to, if they're in an NFL owner's room, that they make, poke some jokes at him about who he's got leading his team, that this pushes him over the edge if McDermott, continues to have an unfortunate season that it seems like he's had up to this point. So that's kind of where I go with it. But it's one of those things where if the Bills want to do anything, and if Sean McDermott wants to do anything about it, he has a perfect opportunity on Sunday to get a win, because wins can change everything, and kind of hopefully put it somewhat in the rear view mirror in his eyes, or maybe just at least get the focus in the locker room back on what's really, really needed, and hopefully keep that outside noise on the outside and continue on the path that they're going. So I'm not saying McDermott's going anywhere. I see, Roy over here, he's going nowhere. I'm not suggesting that it's going to be an instant fire or anything like that. I'm just saying it just adds on things when McDermott's already got a problem going on. So that being said, let's get back to the game a little bit here, Stokes. It's an Allen versus Mahomes. This is Allen versus Mahomes 6 in their careers. Josh Allen does technically have the edge in the regular season, 2-1. Mahomes, of course, though, does have both wins in the playoffs. This being the fourth matchup in the regular season. The first question, it's fun. I'm going to talk about how I was on a Chiefs program because I think it was very interesting being on Chief Splits, just to name the show, where I got kind of led, and you can kind of get an idea of where Chiefs fans or Chiefs content creators find themselves in the mindset of, and I loved kind of a discussion that was had there where it was Allen versus Mahomes. And it wasn't meant to be kind of cynical or anything of that nature. It just truly was their curiosity and how a Bills fan such as myself felt about Allen in comparison to Mahomes. And, where do I stand with that and everything of that nature? And the first and foremost, I will say, Stokes, why does it have to be one versus the other and everything like that? Like, how do you feel about this particular quarterback matchup and everything that goes into it that we hear in the national media and everywhere all the time? It feels like in Bill circles where the comparison just always comes back and finds itself every year at Mahomes versus Allen, especially on these game weeks.
I think it would be too easy to just say, yeah. I mean, you can like one or you can like the other. That makes it too easy, but because we live in an era where we need to discuss things like this. It feels like they can both be wonderful. They can both be elite because they both are. It just, for me, it feels like. I feel like Allen's ceiling in a game by game basis is probably higher than Mahomes's, and his floor is lower than Mahomes's. So like he's got the variance that is as much greater. And Mahomes, like even on games where he doesn't look great, it isn't as if he's just making super terrible decisions left and right. And I think that's where the differences between him and Allen. Like Allen can have a 4 interception game, and it's like, well, it was one of those games where Josh was going off the deep end a little bit, and you don't see that so much with Mahomes. If he has a 2 interception game, it's like, wow, Mahomes had a bad game and something like, and things of that nature. So, and you compare the weapons that they both had, like they both have a top end weapon, like with Kelsey and Diggs. So they both have that top end weapon, and then there's the rest that they're dealing with. So it's difficult to not compare the two because those are the two most high profile positions and in the most high profile position in football. But if you offered me Mahomes for Allen, I don't think I would do it. And that doesn't mean that I think that Allen's better than Mahomes. I just think that what Allen means to this community as Bills fans is more important than even if I felt that Mahomes was slightly better as a player. Like what Allen means is more important to me than that.
I love that you brought up, essentially, would you trade one for the other? It was going to be a quick question your way, of course. It was asked to me myself on said program I have already referred to. Josh Allen and Mahomes are both absolutely special in their own right. And to even kind of go on beyond that, it's like both of them feel like, kind of when I was listening to the national media, looking at a couple things I've seen out there, it does feel like even in Mahomes's world, there are some minor questions being raised on, is he having at his standard, a down year, and so on and so forth. And like MVPs, Josh Allen's year is one of those ones where it's been pretty obvious, or at least apparent, where you see the individuals that just want to highlight the turnovers and stuff. Yes, 8 straight games with a turnover. That is obviously not a great thing, but you look at the whole picture, you look at what he's done and kind of the whole thing that is Josh Allen this season. You take away the 6-6 record, that is an MVP quarterback playing right now. It's just unfortunate, and it is the reality, and he will not be your MVP. You need to get the wins. You need to get the playoff position, of course, of a higher standing, so on and so forth. And in Mahomes' case as well, to defend him, like they are league leading in drops by far. He does not have the supporting cast like he's had a few years ago where they could really elevate those things. Last year, they were still able to get by and everything is fine. But even that leading piece that you referred to and mentioned in Travis Kelce, it does look like he is now losing one of those kind of key steps in his game where it's all in the head. He's still got it between the ears, but he's getting older. whatever's happening to him physically, he's banged up left and right. You can only do so much mentally to get over physical, injuries and whatnot. So there's a lot kind of not working in the favor for these quarterbacks and so on and so forth. Like things going against Allen outside of an interception here or there, of course, are just not in his control. And then Mahomes just has a supporting cast that's not nearly as good as where it was 2-3 years ago. So it's just one of those things that these quarterbacks are still playing at a great and high level, elite in the league, and they got more weight on their shoulder, more responsibility, right? So that's what this matchup is. That's what makes it so special, though, Stokes. Like, I'll kick it over to you one more time just to talk about these two great quarterbacks. It's like these two are quite simply what make this matchup special, because if you take either of them away from their respective team, this game is not even remotely close to what it is. And in reality, that is just something that we should absolutely appreciate year in, year out as this matchup continues to happen.
Yeah, I echo so much of that, and we should look back. We're gonna hopefully we look back at this and think that while we had two of the best quarterbacks in their prime going at each other year after year after year, and that is an incredible thing to take part in, because during the drought it was always we have to survive, versus these good quarterbacks. How are we going to go against these great quarterbacks? And we have one of them, and we can feel comfortable going against just about anyone. That no matter who it is, we're gonna have a shot, even if our roster isn't as good as another team's. Like we've got the guy that can cover that margin of error. Like he may create it, of course, sometimes, but we have a guy that can cover it. And that's really fun to consider every single week, to get excited to watch Bills football, because we know we're going to see one of the best players in the sport out there, and it's really a treat. And I hope that we as fans continue to appreciate that. Like it's the season of gratitude, and just appreciate that we have one of the best players in this game that we all clearly love.
Yeah. Roy, real quick, I do not want to imagine a world where Kansas City and Buffalo are in the same division. The stress levels would go through the roof twice a year. I don't need that. We don't need that. We can appreciate it once a year. I look forward to a time where it can finally happen in Buffalo once again. It feels like it's been centuries since that has happened. That will come eventually. But overall, it's one of those ones where once a season, if not the second time, let that be in the playoffs, if at all. Like let's leave that second time out there. Let's not have two in the regular season and maybe even a third in the playoffs. It's a little too much. We can enjoy it once on a season. Real quick, I've seen some things in chat, of course. Injuries are a big thing now in this game. I feel like they are bigger than what they felt like they were going to be going into this game. The biggest news of it all, the Bills are healthy, essentially. There is one thing. Dawson Knox is listed as questionable. Elam is also technically listed as questionable, although it's already been confirmed that he's not going to be activated off IR prior to the game. The big news, though, being Pacheco, who is dealing with a shoulder injury, is already ruled out. He, along with tackle Donovan Smith, safety Brian Cook, and linebacker Drew Tranquil, are out for this game. Pacheco, Stokes, I know you have to be an individual who can appreciate a guy like Isaiah Pacheco. You are what I like to think of as a running back connoisseur. You have a keen love for running backs. I could go on and on about this. How big of a deal is this for the Bills that they will not have to see number 10 in the backfield for Kansas City running as angry as all hell against them and their defensive line?
Yeah, that I think is going to be a big thing, because every time you see Pacheco get the ball, he's running like this is the last carry of his entire life. But he runs so hard, and he's going to try and get every single yard.
Yeah.
And it feels like the other guys that they have are more finesse type of players. So you would think that it's going to lean more towards they're going to run a little bit more. They're going to run a little bit differently, and that's what you would like to see, especially if Clyde Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Derek McKinnon, those types of guys, they're not the same types of players as is Isaiah Pacheco. And as you mentioned, I love watching him play. I love watching him run because he runs so angrily and like he really really wants it. And it's a benefit for the Bills that he's not going to be out there, and it just means that they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. And at this point, I want to see how they're going to try to attack the Bills because you'd have to figure that Mahomes doesn't fully trust his guys as much as he had in the past. And as you mentioned, Kelsey losing a step or a degrees of a step, if that's what it is. And it makes me excited because I feel like we've got a linebacking core that can ruffle a little feathers in the passing game, and it's just a matter of what we're going to be able to do on the outsides and in the slot versus Mahomes. But I think that this defense matches up fairly okay with the Chiefs, and not having to worry about Pacheco is a great thing.
Yeah, the Pacheco thing to me was a very big sigh of relief because when you look at the weapons for Kansas City, and I think you brought up a lot of great points, especially concerning those weapons. I really feel like it's gotten to a point now where, yes, Rashee Rice is definitely on the rise for them. I think he's a very good receiver and a very good weapon for them. I think at this moment in time, though, I would put Pacheco as their second best weapon. I think Pacheco is an incredible talent, an incredible find. I brought it up already. It was a day 3 find, whether it was, I believe it was a 7th rounder, Roy. I believe you are correct, but overall, day 3 guy. And the production and just overall dynamic nature of how he runs and how physical he is. And I love you saying it's like it's going to be his last carry. I think that is spot on perfect. He just runs so angry all the time. On the Chiefs podcast I was on, I thought they said something that was very interesting too. He's like a Marshawn Lynch without the weight. And he does. He's got that same style to him. Yes, he's not as built like a boulder like Marshawn Lynch was as well, but overall, he still runs just as angry, just as vicious. And that is the type of runner I feel like the Bills always struggle with. He is the type of individual that coming out of the backfield is always a massive problem, no matter how good on their day they are. He is a struggle. So that's a big loss for Kansas City. And yeah, I'm with you. I think a lot of the weight's going to shift back on those outside weapons. Rashee Rice, I mentioned already, of course. Kadarius Toney's technically available, although I think he's fallen down the pecking order a little bit. You have your Sky Moore, Justin Watson, and then, of course, Travis Kelce. Those guys are going to have to contribute while then also CEH and McKinnon are playing complementary football of their own in the backfield. So I am very curious to see how Kansas City handles that. I think Pacheco is a lot bigger to them than even some like to admit. He is just so big. I do think Chiefs fans respect him. Like, he is held to such high regards, and it's not like I'm saying anyone discredits him. It's just, it still even feels like it falls short. Kind of rolling into that a little bit though, with, mentioning how it's kind of a little bit light for the Bills defense, or at least a sigh of relief. The defensive conversation in this game, Stokes, is one that I think it's overlooked naturally because you have the quarterback matchup you have. But overall, these are two defenses that I think are thought of differently, and yet maybe more similar in some ways than some might want to admit, where you have a Chiefs defense that they are given a lot of praise, as they should. They have had a very solid season. They've come up big for the Chiefs over the course of this season, especially when certain games the offense wasn't clicking. They still got it done for them in the end, and I feel like that was something they didn't have in previous years. But they also did just kind of let the Green Bay Packers do what they wanted against them, we'll just say. I'm not saying the Packers went for 600 plus and exploded all over them, but Jordan Love is not exactly a world beater, although he is looking better and better week by week. And the Packers, especially with the help of pre-snap motion, were really able to kind of keep the Chiefs defense on their heels and not really let them feel comfortable the whole time. And then when you flip it with the Bills, it's very interesting to me because decimated by injuries, it feels like they always let you down. And yet it's never the personnel that truly makes you feel like it's let down. It's more play calling or game management or things of that nature, where it just feels like it hasn't clicked, but yet it's not because Tyrell Dodson is just battering himself into the wrong gap every play. And he's all over the place. I'm not saying he's been also incredible, but at the same time, he's not at fault a lot of the times. So how do you feel about the defenses in this game? Who do you think match up truly better against their opposition? I know you kind of already mentioned that a little bit there, but I think this is a great time to bring that up. It's like, who truly has kind of that edge in the defensive side of this game, because they kind of find themselves in a little bit of different situations between the Bills and the Chiefs.
So I think that the Bills have an edge in the back seven, but I feel like the Chiefs have an edge in the front four. And if you would have told me that coming into this year, I would have said that is a crazy thought. But the Chiefs, they have a couple of guys who are big time threats. So whether it's Karlaftis or if it's Chris Jones, like those guys are disruptors, and Chris Jones more so than any of them. He's really really dominant, and he is great. And so like we've already seen situations where he has caved in the Bills' offensive line in playoff games and in other situations. So up front, I think they have the edge, but I feel like in the secondary they have good players on paper, but as you previously mentioned, the Packers were able to do things that gave them fits, and not necessarily, as you said, not necessarily that they torched them completely, but they were able to control that game in the sense that they won it fairly handily. Although the Chiefs made their runs and such, but they were able to win, and that's the most important thing. And the offense worked and did what they needed to do. So I think that the Bills have. And it's hard. It's always hard to do analysis when it comes to the Bills, because like I see, like, we see and we have that, even a tinge of a bias that we feel like the Bills defense, they can play up to whatever they need to play to. But I feel like the Bills are a good fit for this game, and I feel like the Bills will defensively. I don't know whether the game plan will change from the last times they faced the Chiefs, but in the back seven, I think the Bills are really really well suited for this game.
Yeah, for sure. The comment too by Josh Mack 28 here. Curious to see how Nick Bolton looks back. It looks in his first game back. That is a big bump for them, I will say. Nick Bolton is a great linebacker for them. He kind of is what helps that whole crew tick a little bit at that linebacker position, but it is his first game back. So very curious to see how it is. I'm kind of with you. It's one of those ones where I do respect a lot about the Chiefs defense. I think, Snead, McDuffie in their secondary, Reed as their strong safe. They have a lot of pieces that work really, really well. It's just one of those things where they've been very good up front, but if you can control Chris Jones and Karlaftis, which is a tall order. I mean, of course, Chris Jones especially, but if you can at least control them a little bit, they can be still had. And I think the Packers did a very good job at just slowing things down to allow them to continue to control the game as best as they could and as well as they did through those 60 minutes. It still came down close to the end there, but they still got it done. And like you said, wins all that matters. On the flip with the Bills, the thing, and why I'll come back to this and why I kind of wanted to be like, how do you feel about them? It's just one of those things where, yeah, the front, the defensive line for the Bills has kind of been underwhelming. I think Leonard Floyd is still obviously, of course, been big for them. He's come up with big sacks throughout the season. Ed Oliver's had a great season. He's proving that extension to be very worth it. But outside of those individuals, and AJ Epinesa has had his moments, and Rousseau is still doing his thing, although I don't think he's elevated himself nearly as much as we had hoped he would this season. He's still a quality player. It does feel a little bit underwhelming on that defensive line, and yet injuries at the linebacker, no Milano. It doesn't feel like that's too much of a loss. It is a loss. They can't do the dominant things that they love to do, but they still get by there. And then, of course, the midseason addition of Rasul Douglas, I feel like has gotten the secondary in a place where they continue to. They've almost gotten better in a way because Josh beats this drum a lot. It's no disrespect to what was happening early in the season, but when the injury started and when we saw that injury, and I'm just not going to say his name because I don't want to disrespect the name, But when he went out and then we traded for Rasul Douglas, things got better in that secondary. It got more athletic, we'll call it. And you notice that people can fly around a little bit more. And that has been big. And when Rasul got traded, the first thing I said too is our curl defending on the edge is going to be a lot better. And Rasul Douglas is a dog on those curls. And that will be an interesting one where, something like the Bengals like to attack that kind of stuff. I do think the Chiefs like to throw that in a lot at the boundary to try to get people running back towards the ball as Mahomes gets it out quick. I like our secondary a lot in this matchup because it just doesn't feel like the Chiefs have kind of Rashee Rice is one guy I fear, but I don't think it's enough to overwhelm our secondary to the point where I'm going to be uncomfortable at all. I think we have individuals across the board that can more than manage everything in front of them. And it will be very, very interesting to see kind of that. The pressure game is ultimately what it's going to come down to. It always comes down to the trenches, Stokes. It always does. Absolutely. But it will be curious to see how we handle their defensive line versus how they handle ours, because it does feel like one of those ones where our coverage could be maybe a leg up, no disrespect to theirs, and they will just be able to have a little bit of an easier job. So we just need that defensive line to be doing its job. Real quick, appreciate everyone that stopped by and watching and whatnot. Give us a like, leave a comment, say hi in the chat, say whatever you want in the chat. No, please, not, family show here. Let's not go crazy on that one, but we do appreciate watching. Sitting in the host chair is not the most comfortable thing for me, but I appreciate it because Stokes and himself. See, I always point this way normally, Stokes. Him sitting there just makes this feel like normal. Be sure to subscribe. We love to do this every week, Friday nights. It's time, Stokes, to kind of talk about the nitty gritty and kind of how you're feeling about this game overall, what you like, X factors, game changers, all of that fun stuff. What do you think the people truly need to know and pay attention to in this game? What are things that could truly tip the scale either for or against the Bills in this matchup against the Chiefs?
I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is the front four. We have individuals who have been playing well, whether it's Floyd, whether it's Ed Oliver, and Epineza has shown flashes, and Groot, as is mentioned in the chat, has been playing hurt. We have a lot of guys who have shown flashes, and there hasn't been a game yet this season where it's like, okay, that defensive line really dominated against good competition. Let's just put it that way. I mean, they crushed Sam Howell, but the Commanders they're not great. So against a high level quarterbacks, we haven't had situations where the defensive line look like they're making a difference. If you see a lot of plays where Mahomes is sitting there for 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds, even the worst wide receivers are going to get open against having that much time. We just have to be in a position where Mahomes just doesn't feel comfortable. He's a danger when he's scrambling, but I would prefer that than him just sitting in the pocket, not worrying about anyone around him. And as you mentioned, them having a bunch of drops, eventually that is going to correct itself. I mean, these guys are professional wide receivers, so whether they'll continue to drop, I don't foresee that. So getting to Patrick Mahomes and making him feel uncomfortable, I think that's the most important thing out there. What did I do?
I don't know. I just liked how Chief Splits is saying "ouch, Stokes." Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a similar philosophy, or similar mindset, I should say. But my whole thing is I don't think it's quite simply this individual matchup here. But the thing I kind of noticed or was just paying attention to earlier in this week and have kind of been thinking about throughout the week is I do believe that the Bills have a little bit of an edge overall in secondary and kind of like what you said, the back seven. But I do get worried about kind of the Chiefs front line. I get worried about that defensive line and Chris Jones, main man. And he is probably going to be lined up a lot against rookie O'Cyrus Torrence. And that is where I get a little concerned. I think, how do I put this? O'Cyrus Torrence has had a very good year. O'Cyrus Torrence has been great for this offensive line as a whole. They've all been out there this whole season. Things have been going well. I do think you're starting to see just a little bit of dip from O'Cyrus. I think you're starting to see that rookie wall a little bit out of him, where maybe he does have an error in him now, more so. And when you're lined up against a guy like Jones, that could be a nightmare scenario where those errors amplify themselves and problems arise. And that's kind of a big X factor to me. How they handle Jones, especially if he's lined up against Osiris Torrance, is everything to me. And even McGovern for that matter, like they're both quality pass blocking guards, but at the end of the day, Jones is Jones, and how they handle him on the interior is everything on what we can get out of Josh Allen. If they can hold their own and do their job, especially the Rook, I think we can have a very good chance of not only winning this game, but in a controlling way, some variety. I'm not saying that as in a blowout, but just in a manner where it doesn't feel like we do truly need those superhuman Josh Allen plays, once in a while to continue to move the ball and everything. We will be able to do things similar to like what we saw in Philadelphia. And that's kind of where I get a little bit of hope about it. Osiris Torrance has had a little bit of a dip, but he did hold his own for the most part against the Eagles and their interior defensive line that is very big, very athletic, and very, very good. So it's that to me is a key of this game. And on the Bills kind of defensive side, it's just quite simply, you need to do as much as you can to just limit those big chunk plays from Kansas City. And how do you do that? Just don't let Travis Kelce do that to you. You just plain and simple. It is that easy. It feels like at times against Kansas City. Every time you watch them, it's like, just do not let 87, that 15 to 87, do not let that connection be the go-to regular thing that it will eventually be. Let it happen later in the game when it just feels like they have to do it in order to get moving and they're forcing it and things like that. Don't let them get grooving early. Don't let them continue to just grind you down. It's not like Kelce's going to blow you over the top or anything like that, but he will beat you down in the middle of the field as best as he's done, as long as he has been doing it for 10 plus years now. So I think it's been 10 plus years. It feels like forever, to be quite honest.
Sure
So Stokes, it's time. Predictions, everything like that. How do you think this game goes down? What do you see happening in Arrowhead with Nance and Romo on the call, CBS? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not. I don't care. For we'll call national 4:00 Eastern game. How are these Bills going into Arrowhead to play the Chiefs going to do, and what is going to happen?
I feel like the Bills are going to win this game. I feel like this game it'll be like 28, 24, something along those lines. I don't know whether I think the Bills are going to go down to try and win, or whether it's going to be a stop at the end. But the game is definitely going to be in the balance with someone driving. And it's going to be a close game, as most of these are. And I just feel like the Bills are going to want this more. And I feel like with everything that happened this week with the story, I think that the results are going to dictate the narrative in that sense. So if the Bills win, the guy's gonna say, yeah, we rallied around our coach after everything that happened this week. They're not gonna mention it specifically, but they say we rallied around coach. We knew he needed us this week, and we got the job done. Or if things go poorly, they're gonna say, oh yeah, the outside stuff is not a big deal. So the results are gonna dictate what they say. But I feel like this is the moment. 6-0 after a bye, as you mentioned. I don't think that is going to get tarnished this week.
Yeah. Did you give a score? Let's throw a score on there. A for sure score.
24.
28-24. A classic 28-24. I feel like 28-24, 27-24. It's like the most thought of score line in the history of watching football. But we'll take it. Yeah, this is one where before the story, I guess I'll put it. It's almost like saying pre-COVID, right? It's like pre-story. I was in this thought of, look, I think McDermott's got them back and focused. It was kind of, that's what the reset of the bye can be for this team. He's it's just get in. We have the stretch that we need to get done ahead of us. You have a Chiefs team that is a little bit banged up. I wasn't even aware at that point that Pacheco would truly be out, but of course now he is. But even at that time, I was like, I think the Bills coming off a bye, kind of getting things corrected at that time, getting a little bit more rested overall will get over the line. And the score prediction I technically gave at that point in time on another show was, I believe, 31-27. Post story.
Okay.
Post story, I truly have no idea what to expect. I really, I called it basically a coin flip at that time. Pre-story, it truly becomes, because that is something to me that is so polarizing. You know, you have no idea how the psyche of this team is going out for that game. There is no way to know. You have no idea if it's already been in their head there because they lived through it already, and now it's just become public knowledge. Honestly, to me, that might even feel like a weight off of their shoulders, where it's like, well, now you see what's going on. Now you see some of the things we've had to like internalize and not get out there until this moment in time. And to me, that could be powerful, because then it's like, all right, McDermott now is almost going to kind of say, you know, F star, star, star this, and let's just go beat someone down in response to that. I really pray that that's kind of the response he has. I don't see McDermott quite being that kind of guy, but boy, would that be nice. Overall, though, I don't actually think it moves the needle on this game. I will say that. I think the Bills coming off a bye, McDermott coming off a bye, they will be well prepared for this game. I expect to see a little bit more of an organized and kind of methodical team overall, where it doesn't really truly take superhuman things out of Josh Allen, and it feels like there is some sort of serious game plan and understanding of what they need to accomplish on that day. And Kansas City is one of those teams where they are still as good as anyone, could beat anyone at any time. Of course, they're the defending champs, but we finally have started to see a little bit of chinks in the armor. We're starting to see kind of things where it's like, yes, as long as everything goes well, they are still going to probably dominate you. But if one or two things don't go right for them, if their receivers do kind of have a few drops, like you mentioned, if Mahomes starts questioning on where he can go with that ball, I don't think he ultimately tucks it, pulls it down when he sees MVS streaking down the field open. He will still throw that ball, but the confidence in that throw won't be there. He won't be believing as soon as it leaves his hands that it will be brought down. And as those things add up, if those things can happen, if those things continue to happen, I think the Bills are a team where they still will find a way coming off a bye, because they are expecting what they hopefully have planned for. And at the end of the day, I will stick with my score prediction, 31-27. I believe the Bills do win this game. I think it's just a half tick bigger to them than it is the Chiefs. And backs against the wall, number 17 is a guy I will live and die right next to. I think when he feels the pressure, when you see it on the field, you see the Eagles game, and you will probably see it again on Sunday. Give me the Bills, give me Josh Allen all day long in these situations. It's one of those ones where going into this season, I actually thought this could be a loss. I thought this could be a situation where maybe I was thinking the season would be better off at this point for what it's worth. But this is one where I could see McDermott finally having a loss off the bye and over, just not feeling it there. But I will say, I was going to bring this up. I'm glad that he commented on this one on that program. The one scenario that really tickled my fancy, though, was a 28-27 Chiefs over Bills as they tried to go for a 2-point conversion and failed. Give me a Josh Allen with the 2-point conversion all day long. I would love to see that somehow not happen. Because I believe it would actually be converted. And if you get a 2-point conversion to win the game in Arrowhead, you got me reeled back in about playoffs and everything else in front of us for the Bills. So
the Bills would cover it as 1.5. So
oh my goodness, too. Yeah, the cover. Speaking of all that, this was a fun conversation about Bills Chiefs. But yes, there is other football to be had, Stokes. Are you aware of that? Are you aware that football Sundays are a thing?
I think so.
And this week in week 14, the season's winding down. We got 5 more weeks to have fun with. Last week, I had a 2-1 record, Stokes, on Luka's Locks, but technically we did lose units. I think it was a total of 0.2 something or 0.3 something. The Steelers shockingly lost to the Cardinals. So, of course, they did not cover 6.5. It was great for the Bills, not good for the wallet. But we are back this week for my locks. I believe you prepared some yourself as well.
I've got 2.
Awesome. Last time Stokes was on, he went 2-0. He not only went 2-0, I believe he crushed those. I'm pretty sure those babies were seemingly locked up by the end of third quarters, it felt like, if I recall. They were a while back, but we're glad to have you back, Stokes.
Yeah.
And we're going to go to the first one here, Stokes, where I'm going to take everyone to another game of the weekend. There are some quality games this weekend, but the Sunday night game is the Eagles at the Cowboys. We saw, of course, the Eagles' last Bills game where they finished it, but then they got stomped by the Niners, and the Cowboys kind of have everything going for them. It's a weird situation where normally Josh tees it up for me. How do you feel about this game real quick before then I give my lock? What do you think about the Cowboys and Eagles, with the Cowboys, mind you, getting with the Eagles, mind you, getting 3.5 points as they are in Dallas?
So I think that the question would be surrounding how healthy Jalen Hurts is. So that I think that's why they're getting the potential 3.5, and I think that is candy if I'm a gambler, because these types of games, they should be close, and the Eagles Cowboys, that big time rivalry, and Jalen Hurts, I think that whether he's hurt or not, if he's out there, he's gonna be effective. So I'd be surprised if he's not an effective player out there. So I would think that the Eagles are. I would try to take that as a gift from Vegas, but Vegas, Vegas does what Vegas does.
I like how you put that. Vegas does what Vegas does. That's absolutely right. Yeah. It's one of those lines where I truly had to kind of double and triple check it. I could not believe. Yes, the old saying is home team gets 3 points. So effectively, in that philosophy or in that mindset, you would believe this to be a coin flip game that slightly leans to the Cowboys. But I do think the Hurts injury plays into it and everything of that nature. I just don't understand it overall, though. You have the Eagles plus the hook against a Cowboys team that, look, in a couple of weeks, we get Cowboys Dolphins. I have already called that the Fugazi Bowl. I do not believe in either of those teams. And one of them, the Cowboys, is playing in this game against a 10-win Eagles team that is somehow a dog. Yes. Give me the Eagles plus 3.5 all day, every day. This is probably the last time this season you will see the Eagles as dogs, let alone 3+ dogs. It's like, yeah, I need that in my wallet. If this wasn't a lock to me, it would be criminal in a sense. I know it's slightly to the public, but overall, man, it is candy, and candy tastes good, and I'd rather enjoy it than let it sit on the table and go to waste. So yes, give me Eagles plus 3.5. Sorry. All right, Stokes. Do you have 2 this week?
Yes, I've got 2.
All right. I don't know what Stokes has. I don't believe he typed them up anywhere for me. So I'm just going to kick it over to you, Stokes. What is your first lock of this week?
Okay, so my first lock is there was a lot of stuff surrounding what's going on with the Jets this week. Aaron Rodgers came out and sort of defended Zach Wilson, sort of confirmed what was said. It's a lot of I don't know what was going on there, or rather, he said, "Well, yeah, Zach did say that, but homeboy shouldn't have told somebody that." So I feel like this is going to be the moment where the Jets are going to rally around their quarterback, and the defense is going to go out and try to make a statement against CJ Stroud, rookie quarterback, as great as he has been, rookie quarterback against what's one of the better defenses in football. Zach Wilson, he hasn't been great, but giving him 3.5 points with that type of defense, Tim Boyle was terrible. So I don't think that Zach Wilson is going to be any worse than that. So I would take the Jets getting 3.5, and I think this is going to be a rallying moment for the Jets.
I love the thought in this. I will say, Stokes, when this line opened up at 6, I hopped on +6 as fast as you possibly could. I was like, there's no way they trot Tim Boyle back out there. And anything you put back out there will be better than that. So the line will already move. Once they announce Zach Wilson, yes, Zach Wilson's been awful, but he can still give you things. I mean, the Jets-Chiefs game, He's a questionable call and maybe making a play or two more away from winning that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't think he ever sees the bench if he actually beats Mahomes in that duel. He probably would still be benched because the Jets are the Jets. But overall, I love your thoughts on this. I think giving them 3.5 against a rookie CJ Stroud, as great as he's been, this is a very, very good defense, and you could see a dip in his play. I love that thought. I love that what you're thinking in that. That is a great pick out of you. The second pick I have, we're going to Monday night. I haven't touched a Monday night game in a while on these things, and we have 2 of them this weekend. One of them is probably not the one you're going to be watching. I mean, both of them aren't great, but at least one is maybe going to be a little bit more competitive, being the Packers and Giants. That's not the one we're touching here, Stokes. We are going to go to Miami because we're going to visit the Titans, going to Miami to play the Dolphins. This is one where you got to go off kind of the face of the books a little bit here. You got to dig a little deep, and I was digging a little deep. And I know off air we talked, or I at least told you what my 3 locks would be, just so you had a reference point. And you even mentioned that you had your eye, coincidentally, on this one yourself. And I find that great. That makes me feel even better, Stokes, because someone else dug a little deep and saw something that was kind of eye-opening on these lines. And it just, even though it is a higher number, just feels like it isn't high enough. Tennessee's an awful team. Tennessee is awful. Their defense is not great. And everything and some just feeds into Monday night beatdown where the Dolphins showcase everything they could possibly do to the world with Tyreek, with Devin Achane, another week back. I love to say Achane, though. It hurts me saying Achane every time. All of that offense, all of that speed against this Tennessee team that is just, that defense is just not good. There's no speed. There's nothing to help them. Yeah, the team total being only at 30.5 is criminally low. It almost feels like. Give me Dolphins over 30.5 against a Titans defense that I genuinely am out of ideas. Even their best defender, their interior defensive lineman in Simmons is going to be out, I do believe. It's like, what do they have that they could possibly stop this Dolphins team? Tua, of course, is kind of a one-read timing quarterback. I don't think he's going to be getting disrupted or have any issues in seeing what he's seeing downfield. And if he is not disrupted, if you are not able to get him looking for a second read anywhere, 31 points seems very easily obtainable for an offense that did earlier this season against what seems to be a better Broncos defense than we thought, put up 70. So yeah, give me Dolphins team total over 30.5. Yes, please. And thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any qualms with that. And as you mentioned, I was looking at that as well. Like 31 points for an offense as dynamic as this one. You just know there's going to be one play where Tyreek is past the defense. It's just a matter of whether the ball hits him, and the ball has been hitting him. So it's that offense is really really tough to defend for the good defenses in the NFL, and the Titans don't qualify as a good defense. So yeah, they're going to score points in bunches. It's going to be Monday night in Miami. I think they're going to go out there to try and make a statement for sure. So yeah, I couldn't echo that anymore.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's just crazy to me that this total to me still should be 37 at least.
Yeah,
like, this should be
I could definitely
much higher. So, yeah, that's my second pick. Stokes, what do you got as your other pick for this week's locks?
Okay, it's another team total, and it's a little bit closer to home. It's the Buffalo Bills. The team total for this week for them is 24.5. I think with the way the Bills offense has looked these last couple weeks, it is really difficult to see how they are going to be consistently stopped. As we mentioned, the Chiefs defense is on paper very good, but they have been able to get touched over the last little bit. So thinking that they're going to hold the Bills to 24 or less, it just doesn't seem like something logical, and especially after what they've done over the last couple of weeks against the Jets and then the Eagles, that leads me to believe that they're not going to be in a situation where they're just going to be consistently stopped. So over 24.5. And obviously I predicted 28 points. So easy peasy. If I'm right here, then maybe I'm right there. So that's that seemed like a little bit too low for me for a situation where the Bills versus the Chiefs, like they tend to have these games where Allen's locked in and he's doing his thing.
Yeah. I finishing note, perfect. Allen's locked in, back against the wall, needs to get it done. He's going to try to do everything in his arsenal, in his power, to get the ball in the end zone or get points on the board, however it needs to happen. 24 and a half. It's a sizable number in a big game on the road in Arrowhead, but for an offense that's trending upwards like it is with the performance that they're coming off of in Philadelphia, I like that pick a lot. 24 and a half does seem a little bit low in that case. That's a bold lock. I will say, Stokes, I just had to go back and look it up real quick. You were 2-0 with your back in week 5, taking the Falcons -1.5 and Bengals -3 in those weeks. And that would put you plus, I believe, 1.6 units, just for the record. So it's out there. Everyone understands what record is on the line this week for Stokes. He has his 2 picks being, and I'll put them back up. These are Stokes' 2 picks, Jets +3.5 and Bills team total over 24.5. Now, further ado, the last lock of the weekend, the 2-unit play that I like this weekend. We are going to go. Obviously, I picked a Monday night game, so we're not going to do anything later than that. We're going to go back to the 4 o'clock slate. And there's a divisional game that I kind of had my eyes on. And I wasn't even aware of this line until today when someone told me what it was, and it made absolutely no sense. I genuinely had to be like, okay, there has to be a lot of money on the other side. There has to be something that's going on that completely pushed it in his favor because it just doesn't make sense. But in all reality, it's kind of sat where it was the whole week. And it feels like this feels like one where the Sharps are really trying to just dangle something in front of you and get you going. But there is no way or fashion that anyone in their right mind should lay money on the Chargers. So we're in LA with Broncos at Chargers, and somehow the Broncos are +2.5 in this matchup where they have opportunity and playoffs in front of them. And the Chargers are just trying to fight for a coach that I don't even know if they want to fight for in the first place, who could only put up 6 points and drop every ball in front of them against a Patriots defense that even had Mitch Trubisky put 18 up on them this past Thursday. Yeah, give me the Broncos +2.5 at the Chargers. That is insane. And you're even getting it at a very good line right now. -104 on FanDuel, -108 on DraftKings. They're favorable lines. It's not your typical -110 or worse for the juice. I just don't see a world. I will be honest, Stokes. I wanted to make this even better and put a money line because I truly do not see a world where the Broncos lose this game. There's just way too much at stake for them with a great coach versus a very bad coach, one that should be fired tomorrow, and a team that is spiraling downwards. How are they favorites? Yes, it's at home, but the fakest home in the NFL is LA. Why are you giving them 3-point respect? It just, nothing about this makes sense. So if you're going to hand me 2.5 points, just in case, the Chargers find something to win by 1, give me that all day long. But realistically, I think the Broncos win this game. So I will happily take the less juiced 2.5 points that you are willing to give me.
Yeah. It is given their trajectories, it doesn't make a lot of sense with the way the Broncos have played the last month and a half, and the way the Chargers have played the last month. It just seems very, very odd. And I guess it's, as you said, the home team getting the 3, that type of thing. But this just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I would take the Broncos if I had to. I would probably stay away from this game just because of the 2.5. If I was gonna bet it, I'd probably give it a little juice. The plus 3 is probably like -120, 125, something in that range, just for that comfort of the the last second field goal to win the game for the Chargers if that's the case. And you can see that putting them at 3 or whatever. But I don't think that the Chargers are going to win this game. I think that Staley, he's not fit to be the head coach for Justin Herbert anymore. And I don't trust the squad, but I do. If you had me, map out who the best players in this game are, I, two of the first three or four would be Chargers. So that's where they could make that difference because Herbert, he's a better quarterback than Russell Wilson. The pass rush is better than the Broncos. So if those two things can be factors, the Chargers could win it. But the other factors lead me to believe that the Broncos are going to win the game.
Yeah, for sure. I will say the responsible thing, Stokes, would probably be buying that point or half point to get the 3, or sometimes what I even like to call the overtime insurance.
Yeah.
You just essentially probably should do that. I did see 3.5, I believe on FanDuel was minus 148 or something, very juiced up. 3 at DraftKings, I want to say was minus 123. If you don't feel comfortable with your 2.5, I fully understand that. Trust me, I am not one that also likes to bet 2.5s. But when you're going to give it to me on a team that I feel like should be a 3-point favorite, not a 3-point dog, yeah, I'll just take the 2.5, especially with juice not even fully there. So yeah, that is this week's Luka's Locks. Just to recap it one last time for the clip and everything like that. I have Eagles plus 3.5 at the Cowboys. Dolphins team total over 30.5. Stokes also likes that himself for the record. And then Broncos plus 2.5 at Chargers. And just to flash it up on screen here, let me just scroll through here so I can get it one last time. Stokes himself putting his perfect 2-0 record and plus units on the line with Jets plus 3.5 and Bills team total over 24.5. And that, my friends, is Luka's Locks. All right, Stokes, as I awkwardly transition back to our normal set and everything like that. How are we, like, after everything we discussed tonight, right? After everything that's been going on, the Bills season, the McDermott story as a whole, all of these things, everything we, of course, broke down a little bit about the matchup itself. Is a loss truly the end of the season? Or is it just going to make things extremely difficult where things are just no longer in their control? Or do you not even care if the Bills were to lose this game? Is care about playoffs ultimately gone in your mind where we should no longer discuss that after this game?
No, so if they lose, I think it would really depend on how they lost. If it's a loss where there's like how we have been the last few weeks, where it's decisions made by head coach that make us question the what's going to happen going forward. I could see us thinking about the rest of it, but if it's a shootout and the Bills aren't able to get it done, I could see that there's still hope because the last couple weeks we were fighting with the big dogs and we had good games and it was like that. I could see us thinking, okay, well, there's still hope because the Cowboys we will not have the result in hand of the Cowboys Eagles game. So we'll see after that game, like, oh, the Cowboys just got roasted by the Eagles. Looking at it Monday, and you say, okay, we're going to crush them, and then the last 3 games we're going to go on this roll. So I could see where we could talk ourselves into there still being playoff hopes after a loss this week. We're still going to need help regardless, but I think it'll really depend on how the game transpires to how we're going to feel as far as the playoffs. Like, do we want to go to the playoffs just to get crushed by whatever team? I still want to just give us a chance. We probably have the better quarterback in whatever matchup it is. So and then give us a shot. But I think regardless, there will still be hope, at least in my eyes. But I don't know. I hate thinking about that type of thought.
The worst case scenario thought. Yeah, it's if the Bills lose this game, I do think, me personally, just kind of full transparency, I think that is where playoffs truly start exiting my brain. I don't think it's over for them. And I will say, until it's mathematically over, if this team were to get in, I still think it's kind of like a situation in the NFC, not of the same variety, because of course Dallas is sitting very comfortable in that 5 spot right now, with still a chance also at the division. But it's one of those ones where if the Bills were to squeak in, especially considering all the things happening in the AFC, there's a real thought and kind of way to tell yourself and convince yourself and others that the Bills could be looked at as the 3rd or 4th best team in the conference, even if they're sitting in the 7th seed, even if they're sitting in the 6th seed. Like, there is a real thought that depending on how things are going, they are better than a few of the teams in front of them. So until it's mathematically eliminated, I think as long as you squeak in with all the things going on in the AFC, we don't even know how many backups are going to be playing in the AFC come playoff times. We are staring down the barrel where we even have the potential somehow, some way of maybe a Joe Flacco Cleveland Browns team going to Baltimore at some point in the playoffs. And I'll tell you, if we get Stokes, I'll tell you this, if we get Joe Flacco going to the Ravens and Matt Stafford and the Rams going to the Lions in the playoffs, there's part of me that's almost like, just let me enjoy those games. I don't even need to worry about my team being in this playoffs. Those two things, for what they are just beautiful. And we need to see those things potentially happen. It's funny scenarios that could happen thanks to this crazy year that we've been having, the AFC especially. So I will say it's a question that I like to kind of think about all the time, though. It's like, how truly important is this game? And then where am I going to find myself if, unfortunately, because of how this year's been, where am I going to find myself following a loss? Because our common friend, Josh, it does seem like every loss is just eating away at him. And he's not alone in this feeling at all, of course. But I've gotten to the point where I'm not even there anymore. And it's like, this is kind of the final straw, not in a massive way where it's just like, after this point, if we were to lose, regardless of how heartbreaking and close it is, I think that's where playoffs finally go. See you later. And if it still somehow happens, it's magical. But if not, it's kind of like we shot ourselves in the foot too many times. And it's just the reality of it. You can't afford to lose these games anymore. So hopefully that's not the case. Stokes, thank you so much for filling in for Josh. It's been fun. I always like your additions to Luka's Locks, of course, as well. Hopefully everyone that watched and stuck through the whole thing enjoyed it themselves as well. Be sure to subscribe to us here at Built in Buffalo YouTube. We like to be your one-stop shop, as my co-host Josh likes to say all the time. If you don't already, check out our Bills Chat YouTube as well. Josh did, as I said before earlier in this episode, drop a video where he just kind of gave his thoughts about the McDermott story and a little bit on how he feels that could impact things. If you are intrigued by that, feel free to watch that. Follow us on Twitter at Bills Chat Pod. Stokes at Stokes36. He likes to fill in once in a while and give his own thoughts on things. So, and also if you like betting advice, he's a guy that also likes to dabble in the betting, of course. So feel free to blow him up about all of these things.
True.
But that is it, Stokes. I am Luka. Hold on. You are Stokes. I'm kind of doing this right. This is Bills Chat Live. We will be back. Josh and I will be back, I should say, Monday morning with our podcast. And then we will be back Friday for another edition of Bills Chat Live. You all have a great rest of your evening.